When it comes to getting paid, there are a variety of important documents that you may use during the sales process. Some of these are always required, others are optional. It's important to understand their function in the course of a sale and not confuse their roles. In the sales process, billing is a crucial part of the process, making sure you get paid for the product/service you've provided. However, there can be many documents involved in a sale. Some are legally required, while others might be useful for your industry, business, or included in your sales process as a personal preference. The main documents you'll likely encounter during a sales process: quotation, proforma invoice, invoice, delivery note. Of course, these aren't necessarily the only documents involved in a sale. There might also be reminder letters and payment receipts, but these are circumstantial. This article focuses only on the four above. Quotations and how they are used. A quotation or quote is a document issued by the seller that outlines the expected products/services that will be included and the prices. This is different from even another document, known as an estimate, in that the prices provided in a quote is agreed upon as soon as the quote is accepted by the customer. If the customer does not agree to the quote, they can discuss any desired changes with the seller, who can then make the changes and send the customer an updated quote. This can happen more than once before the customer accepts the quote. The prices set forth in a quote are agreed to by both the customer and the seller. This means that even if the work or products are beyond what is quoted, the price cannot be altered. A quote might sound similar to an invoice but has some significant differences that should be kept in mind. A quote is only a commercial document, it's not used in accounting. The document must clearly state that it's a quotation. The numbering of the quotes is not required to follow a set sequence. Quotes are used to provide customers with an outline of the final services so that there aren't any surprises on the invoice. It's commonly asked whether a quote can be used to collect a deposit. The answer is no. An invoice must be issued in order to collect any payment. Proforma invoices, when and how to use them. Proforma invoices are perhaps frustratingly similar to quotes. They're used at similar times in the sales process and both provide the customer with information about the details of a sale. However, there are crucial differences that should help you determine which is right for your business. A proforma invoice is typically used before the final details are known about the sale. However, quotes just provide more information about what the customer could expect from the sale. In other words, a proforma is used when the customer has committed to the sale that was set out in the quote, but there are still details to work out. The following points should be kept in mind when working with proforma invoices. It's not a valid document to be used in business accounting. A proforma invoice cannot replace an invoice. Payment cannot be taken from a proforma invoice. Proforma invoices are commonly used in international trade when the full details of a sale aren't yet known. When creating a proforma invoice, it's also important that a few requirements are met. It must be clearly labeled as a proforma invoice. No numbering system is used. Converting a proforma invoice to an invoice can be a simple process once the details of the sale are finalized. This is especially so with invoicing software, which gives you the option to create a completed invoice with a click. The invoice and its purpose. The invoice is arguably the most essential document when it comes to getting paid. Many businesses cannot function without issuing invoices. Invoices are official business documents that pertain to the validity of a transaction. An invoice is used in business accounting, and as part of bank reconciliation when recording incoming cash flow. As it's the central legal document of a sale, there are generally strict guidelines about what must be included on an invoice. This can differ depending on the country in which your business is based. In the UK, the following information must be provided on every invoice: a unique, sequential invoice number, the contact details of the seller, the contact details of the buyer, the sale and supply dates, a description of the products/services, subtotal of the sale, VAT, if applicable, total amount due. If you're working in a particular industry, there might be additional requirements, for example under the Construction Industry Scheme, CIS, in the UK, a tax deduction must be included on some invoice lines. Issuing clear, professional invoices not only helps you stay on top of your business finances but can also help you gain more customers. Delivery notes, when to use them. A delivery note is a document that is sent with a shipment of goods. Like the quote and proforma invoice, a delivery note has no fiscal value, it's not essential for accounting purposes. A proforma invoice can be referred to as an initial bill of sale shared with the buyers in advance, prior to delivery of goods or services, indicating a seller's intent to complete the sale. Whenever the word proforma is used, it indicates that the document is just for the sake of form or convention and isn't enforceable. Proforma is derived from Latin words pro, which roughly translates to for the sake of, and forma, which translates to form or appearance. A proforma invoice for advance payment, therefore, provides the buyer with an accurate price on the current transaction and helps avoid confusion or negotiations after the details of the transaction have been agreed upon. However, this does not mean that the terms mentioned in the proforma invoice are final. It is merely a good faith gesture by the selling entity. A proforma invoice cannot be used for accounting purposes. It is merely a gesture, and good business practice, and not a proof of transaction, request for payment, and is a follow-up to the agreed quotations. As mentioned earlier, a proforma invoice is issued by the selling entity to the buyers before the transaction is complete. For instance, in case of a custom order, the seller may choose to issue a proforma invoice to the buyer stating the terms of the transaction and proceed with fulfilling the order. A proforma invoice usually has a pretty accurate fix on the price, including commissions, fees, or taxes, if any, to prevent the buyer from any unexpected price change shocks once the transaction is completed. The proforma invoice is raised to achieve the following objectives: confirmation of intent to sell for the buyer, and vice versa. Accurate price fix to prevent the buyer from any hidden charges/fees. Internal document kept by the sales department to keep track of future transactions. For the sake of custom clearance, in case of cross-border transactions. Provides both the parties with the exact expectations of the transaction and the price. It is necessary to note that no law mandates the proforma invoice to be a part of your billing cycle, but it is merely followed by many businesses because of the advantages it provides. We'd recommend you incorporate proforma invoices as a part of your billing cycle, especially if you're doing business with a company or an entity for the first time. Proforma invoice vs. Invoice. As mentioned earlier, a proforma invoice is not enforceable and is not the same as the final invoice that is issued for tax purposes. We have delved in detail into what invoicing is and the essential information on invoices. A tax invoice is mandatory to be issued as proof of sale. After understanding that a proforma invoice is not an invoice, some people usually confuse it with quotations, while quotations and proforma invoices are two different documents. We have a detailed explanation of what quote or quotations are, and what it means, along with the different types of quotations, which can be viewed here. A quotation is sent as a response to an inquiry regarding the services an entity provides, and the prices mentioned in the quotations are merely estimates. An invoice is a document that specifies any products sold or services provided to a customer for a particular period. It acts as a notification that the customer should pay. A proforma invoice is usually issued before the sale takes place. It is commonly used in export sales, where payment is not yet required. Proforma invoices provide an estimate or quotation for goods or services before they are shipped or provided, but only once the customer has demonstrated commitment to a specific price. It does not mean the invoice is due for payment. Proforma invoices cannot be used to request or make payment. A full invoice is needed before the buyer makes payment. A proforma invoice is used by a seller to communicate to a buyer the expected costs, fees, and date of delivery for an order. This transparency can help the manufacturer avoid any misunderstandings when the order is delivered. A pro forma invoice may also provide the buyer with an opportunity to negotiate the terms before delivery. A buyer who is not satisfied with the price, quantity, or delivery timeline can contact the manufacturer to renegotiate. Pro forma invoices aren't legally required, but they're generally a good idea because they can prevent disputes at the time of delivery. Thank you for watching this video.